Did you know that when it says 0 grams trans fat on a food label, that does not mean there's 0 trans fat in that food? Wait, what? And do you have any idea what natural flavors actually mean? Let's take a look at 7 sneaky tricks used by manufacturers that may very well fool consumers into buying their food. Not everyone wants you to know the truth, so I'm here to expose the science and share practical tips on weight loss, fitness, and healthy lifestyle. It's simply put with no BS. Make sure you're subscribed. I'm Ingunn, the Norwegian Viking. Now, when it comes to food packaging, there are certain rules that manufacturers need to follow, though in my opinion, a lot of these rules are more focused on manufacturers getting away with things rather than informing the consumer. Meaning it's good for the manufacturer, not you. So let's take a look at some of these sneaky tricks they use. Number 1, there are more than 50 types of sugar. Did you know all of these are types of sugar? These may appear on the ingredient list, but a lot of them do not have sugar in the name and even sound like a chemical or something. It's one of those ways that manufacturers can make it seem like there's no actual sugar in the ingredient list when there really is. Sneaky, right? Well, check out this next one. Number 2, dividing the ingredients so they appear further down on the ingredient list. You've probably heard that the main ingredients of a food appear first on the ingredient list, right? That's because the manufacturer has to list each of the ingredients based on the weight of each of them. The one that weighs the most appears first, and so on. Now let's use sugar again as an example, because most people do not want there to be a lot of sugar in the food that they eat. So you would want, in case there is actual sugar in the ingredients, you would want it to appear quite far down in the ingredient list, because that would mean it's not one of the main ingredients, right? Well, here's a sneaky trick. Let's say there's a lot of sugar in the food that we're looking at. So sugar is actually the second ingredient of that food. But instead of using just one type of sugar, the manufacturer could use several types of sugar. Maybe 3 or 4 different types of sugar. Combined, they would weigh the same as if the manufacturer used just one type of sugar, but when you divide them into 3 or 4 different ones, each of them weigh much less. And that means the manufacturer can list them much further down on the ingredient list. And in addition, maybe they even use some that have such weird names that no one would even know it's sugar. How sneaky is that, huh? Number 3, natural. In short, it doesn't really mean much. What would you expect if you hear the word natural describe a food? You would probably expect the food to be some sort of whole food, not processed, not containing any artificial or synthetic ingredients, right? Well, according to the FDA, they don't really have rules when it comes to what can be labeled as natural. Here's what they say. Although the FDA has not engaged in rulemaking to establish a formal definition of the term natural, we do have a long-standing policy concerning the use of natural in human food labeling. Okay, great! So let's hear what this policy is then. The FDA has considered the term natural to mean that nothing artificial or synthetic, including all color additives regardless of source, has been included in or has been added to a food that would not normally be expected to be in that food. Oh no! They started out so well, it seemed like they wouldn't allow any artificial or synthetic ingredients to be part of a natural food, though of course they needed an escape for manufacturers to still use those type of ingredients. Now they continue. However, this policy was not intended to address food production methods such as the use of pesticides, nor did it explicitly address food processing or manufacturing methods such as thermal technologies, pasteurization, or aeration. The FDA also did not consider whether the term natural should describe any nutritional or other health benefits. Okay, so really, it doesn't matter how processed the food is, or even if the food has been sprayed with pesticides. And on top of this, it may even contain synthetic and artificial ingredients, and still the FDA would be okay with the labeling the food natural. Lots of people, I'm sure, think that when they see the word natural that it somehow means that it's healthier. But really, from what we've seen, natural doesn't mean much at all. Another sneaky trick. By the way, if you enjoy this kind of no BS, give it to you straight kind of videos, then make sure you're subscribed and also turn on notifications to be notified when my next video comes out. And also remember to follow me on Instagram at VikingIngunn. Now, sneaky trick number 4, hiding ingredients. Now earlier we kind of saw how it's possible to in a way hide sugar by using names that no one is really familiar with. But there's more. Lots of people do not want any MSG in their food. And actually the FDA does require MSG to be listed on the ingredient list if it's listed as monosodium glutamate. However, the FDA states themselves that MSG occurs naturally in ingredients such as hydrolyzed vegetable protein, autolyzed yeast, hydrolyzed yeast, yeast extract, soy extracts, and protein isolate, as well as in tomatoes and cheeses. While FDA requires that these products be listed on the ingredient panel, the agency does not require the label to also specify that they could naturally contain MSG. So a manufacturer may very well use, let's say for instance, yeast extract as a source of MSG, but they do not need to tell you that it does contain MSG. Sneaky. Now, do you know what natural flavor or natural flavoring means? We've already seen that the word natural doesn't mean much, though the FDA does have a definition for what can be called natural flavor or natural flavoring. The term natural flavor or natural flavoring means that essential oil, oleoresin, essence or extractive, protein hydrolysate, distillate, or any product of roasting, heating, or enzymolysis, which contains the flavoring constituents derived from a spice, fruit or fruit juice, vegetable or vegetable juice, edible yeast, herb, bark, bud, root, leaf, or similar plant material, meat, seafood, poultry, eggs, dairy, or fermentation products thereof, whose significant function in food is flavoring rather than nutritional. Okay, so you feel like you know what natural flavors mean now, right? Now, from this definition, it does look like yeast extract could be listed as a natural flavor, though from what we saw earlier, it also did seem like if you use yeast extract, it would actually have to say yeast extract and not natural flavor. But it's not just about MSG. What else is hiding in these ingredients? It seems quite easy for them to hide the ingredients from us. Why? Why not list all the ingredients? Is it because manufacturers use ingredients we don't actually want in our food? Is it because they use so many natural flavors that listing all of them with all the weird names that they have would make anyone really skeptic to eating that food? What are they hiding from us? And why are they allowed to hide it? Now this next trick is very sneaky. Number 5, 0 grams trans fat does not mean 0 trans fat. If you check what's called the nutrition facts label on the food packaging, then you'll often see that after trans fat it says 0 grams. This is pretty much always the case, even with vegetable oils, which is probably the biggest source of trans fats. So how is it that they can write 0 grams trans fat if there actually is trans fat in there? Well, this one is very sneaky. First, the amount of trans fat that they need to list is not for the whole package, is per serving. And we'll talk a little bit more about servings later on. Now, if we take vegetable oil as an example, one serving may be just 2 teaspoons. So that means they need to list how much trans fat is in just 2 teaspoons of that oil. And here's where the trick gets extra sneaky, because the FDA actually says that if a serving contains less than 0.5 gram, the content, when declared, must be expressed as 0 grams. So if there's less than 0.5 gram in a serving, they must list it as 0 grams. What? Isn't that crazy? Remember, it's per serving, so the whole bottle or the whole package of food may contain a lot more than 0.5 grams of trans fat. And still, they can specifically write trans fat 0 grams. Pretty sneaky. And by the way, this study actually analyzed the content of 30 different vegetable oils and fats and found that even though they say there's 0 grams trans fat on the label, they still contain trans fat. Sneaky trick number 6, using saturated fat and cholesterol health claims. Plus, where is the linoleic acid? Now, this one is controversial. The thing is, on the nutrition facts label, you'll find listed total fat as well as saturated fat and often also trans fat per serving, remember. But there's no mention of how much polyunsaturated fats, or more specifically linoleic acid, there is in the food. For decades now, we've been told that saturated fat is bad. It causes coronary heart disease, we're told. And we're told to substitute saturated fat with polyunsaturated fat. And just so you know, the most abundant polyunsaturated fat is linoleic acid, which is a type of omega-6 fatty acid. But here are a couple of very important questions. Where's the evidence that it's good to actually do that, to substitute saturated fat with polyunsaturated fat, and especially linoleic acid? And where is the evidence that saturated fat causes coronary heart disease? There's a lot to be said about this, so I'll just quote 2 studies here to give you a glimpse of what's going on. In the conclusion of the first one, it says that available evidence from randomized controlled trials, which are considered the gold standard and the only type of study that would be able to prove cause and effect, shows that replacement of saturated fat in the diet with linoleic acid effectively lowers serum cholesterol, but does not support the hypothesis that this translates to a lower risk of death from coronary heart disease or all causes. So the gold standard studies don't actually support what we've been told for so long. Check out the conclusion of this study. This is truly shocking. Advice to substitute polyunsaturated fats for saturated fats is a key component of worldwide dietary guidelines for coronary heart disease risk reduction. However, clinical benefits of the most abundant polyunsaturated fatty acid, omega-6 linoleic acid, have not been established. In this cohort, substituting dietary linoleic acid in place of saturated fats increased the rates of death from all causes, coronary heart disease and cardiovascular disease. Let that sink in for a second. Doing exactly what we're told, meaning substituting saturated fat with polyunsaturated fat, specifically the most abundant one, linoleic acid, resulted in an increase in the death rate, the number of deaths from all causes and coronary heart disease, which is really what we're supposed to be lowering in this case, and also cardiovascular disease. More people died when they followed what we're told to do. This is huge. It is one of the biggest issues we're facing when it comes to dietary advice. Now, how does this relate to food labels? Well, one could wonder, why does saturated fat need to be listed on the nutrition facts label and not linoleic acid? If linoleic acid could possibly lead to higher rates of death, then why not list it on the label? Why not make it mandatory to list it on the label? Actually, instead, manufacturers are actually allowed to put the following types of statements on their packaging in case there's a low saturated fat and cholesterol in their food. Statements such as, while many factors affect heart disease, diets low in saturated fat and cholesterol may reduce the risk of this disease. This is scary because it can make the food seem like it's much healthier than it really is, especially considering the studies that we just looked at. I'm not sure we can call this a sneaky trick, though it's such an important point that I just wanted to include it here, and I hope you don't mind. Now let's look at sneaky trick number 7, nutrition information per serving. We briefly touched upon this earlier. It's on the nutrition facts label that we may find information about different nutrients, the amount of different nutrients in the food, like protein, fat, carbs, as well as other nutrients. This is very important information. However, they still use a very sneaky trick because the information is per serving. Take this nutrition facts label, for example, which is for a bag of chips. Actually, it doesn't really look like there's that many calories in this bag. Just 160 calories and just 10 grams of fat. That's pretty good. That's per serving, which they have defined as 28 grams or about 11 chips. Now, who eats just 11 chips? No one, right? I would not be able to eat just 11 chips. I do get how you could categorize that as a serving, though I think that information on the label should be for the amount that you're actually going to consume. Now, the whole bag contains more than 200 grams. So if you wanted to know how much fat there is in the whole bag or how many calories there are in the whole bag, you would have to calculate it. It's simple math, though it's one of those things that I believe we as consumers shouldn't need to do. The information should be readily available to us, easily available to us. Don't you agree? And remember, 0 grams trans fat does not mean 0 trans fat. Keep that in mind. The especially sneaky trick manufacturers can use is to define one serving as a very small amount, which means that the numbers that you see on the label are very small, making it seem like the food is healthier than it really is. Now, there are certain circumstances where this makes a lot of sense. For example, there may be a package with several pies and it's obvious that you would only eat one pie in one meal. So then it makes sense to put information regarding one pie. But why not just do both? Both one pie as well as the whole package. Another thing to note is the percentage daily value. It's easy to think that when you see a percentage next to carbs, that is the percentage of carbs in that food, but that is not what it means. Daily values are the recommended amounts of nutrients to consume or not to exceed each day. The percentage daily value is how much a nutrient in a single serving of an individual packaged food or dietary supplement contributes to your daily diet. So it's based on the amount we're told to consume of the different nutrients. And remember that we've already seen that there are some major flaws regarding what we're told to consume. Also note that for some of these, it's the amount that we're told to not exceed, while for others, it's the amount that we should aim to actually consume. Confusing, right? And on top of this, it's based on a 2,000 calorie diet. People have very different calorie intakes, so these numbers are very inaccurate to most people. But there you have it. A lot of tricks that I would say are more likely to make people confused than to inform them. Also making it very easy for manufacturers to get away with hiding things from us or making it seem like their food is healthier than it really is. A lot of this could easily be fixed with some simple tweaks, though one could wonder why that's not being done. Hopefully though, this video helps you keep an eye out for those many traps they set out for us. Now, just a quick note at the end here, if you're looking to lose weight using methods based on science, then a good place to start is to download my free guide called Hack Your Way Out of 3 Weight Loss Mistakes Almost Everyone Makes. It shows how it's possible to burn more calories without adding any exercise, and how it's possible to eat until you're full and still lose weight. You can download it for free right now at vikingingun.com. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give it a thumbs up, a heart, or like, depending on where you're watching from, and I'll see you in the next video.